On this episode of the podcast, we talk about mindset, identity, the power of inverted thinking, and how saying no might be one of the best sentences that you can start implementing into your business today. This is episode 279 of the Grow Your Video Business Podcast. What's up, friend? Hey, it's Ryan Coral from Studio Sherpas and the Grow Your Video Business Podcast. This is the show for corporate and commercial filmmakers that are wanting to build a business without burning out. On this show, we cover topics like how to get more clients and how to charge what you're worth, how to work smarter and not harder. It's like oh man, that's the second time I messed it up. I think I messed it up last week. Oh, I almost messed it up. I got it right, but I did stumble. I'm going to leave that in there because on this show, we're just super authentic. You are not alone, my friend. That is a sentence, that is a phrase that I say here that others who are part of this community believe to be true. We're here to learn together. I've been running my own video production business for over 17 years. I've got a team and we make awesome stuff for the companies and the people that we work for. And I want to help you learn faster in your business so that you can really create and be living your best life with the video business of your dreams. That's why I'm here. I'm so glad that you're here. I know there's a lot of different things that you could be spending your time doing right now, but the fact that I have your attention, thank you so much. I am grateful. If you would like to get plugged in with a bigger community of other filmmakers from all across the globe, then I would invite you to head over to studiosherpas.com/community, where you'll have an opportunity to meet a bunch of people and ask questions and get answers and add value. It's a really cool place. Incredible human beings that I get to be in community with. So it's very, very cool. I also have a gift for you. I know one of the hardest parts in my own video business long ago when I got opportunities to meet with executives and be in boardrooms and kind of try to pitch my services, I know how hard that was. It was, I just wasn't sure what to say. I wasn't sure exactly how to lead the meetings, and I wasn't sure how to instill confidence in these people that I was really trying to book at least $10,000 worth of business and ideally a lot more. And so a long time ago, I created something that I use today called the Ascend Method, and I want you to have the Ascend Method for free. You can download my step-by-step guide. This is a process for how I take clients through our initial conversations, whether it's a Zoom call or a phone call, or if I'm in a boardroom meeting talking about how we can help them, the people that we're meeting with the videos that we create. The cheat sheet for the Ascend Method, you can get access to that. My gift to you, if you go to studiosherpas.com/ascend, I would love for you to have that. And there's a little video walkthrough that I take you through as well. I'm really excited about this episode. So without any further ado, let's jump into this interview with Lauren. Here we go. What's up, friends? Hey, welcome to this episode. Today, I've got with me Lauren Johnson, who is a mental performance coach and speaker. Prior to opening her own consulting practice, and we're live.
Can we do a blooper section?
Yeah, we probably should. If you listen to the show, you'd be like, wow, half of Ryan's show is mental. No, not mental, is mental bloopers. Wow.
I'm here for you, Ryan. I got you.
Oh my gosh. I totally got this. Prior to opening her own consulting practice, Lauren served as the mental conditioning coordinator for the New York Yankees, this small baseball club you may have heard of. She received her master's degree in performance psychology from National University. Lauren helps elite individuals develop mental toughness so they can perform their best regardless of circumstance. I said, Lauren, I am an elite individual, so I need you on this show because all that listen are elite individuals as well. Lauren, thanks for coming.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I'm ready for this conversation. I am ready for this. This is going to be so epic. And to be honest with you, I was really excited to join because I know the work that you do, and I know how much that you have brought to your community. So I was really excited to be a part of it.
Awesome. Well, yes, we're super excited to have you. This is a super fun topic. I love the work that you do. But seriously, where did you get the audacity to feel like you could talk about mindset and all of this stuff? How dare you?
How dare I? No, it's honestly a really good question. I played soccer since I was 5. Like, grew up in a very big sports family. My grandpa, my father, my uncle, they played at a very high elite level. And then my brother was an athlete as well. But it was actually third game into my senior year when I received my 5th concussion.
Oh.
And I was told it wasn't safe for me to play anymore. And like any athlete, I was like, we just need a second opinion. And I said this to the neurologist's face. And he looks at me and he goes, Lauren, do you want to remember your name when you're 40? And it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, well, yeah, that's always been the goal. And he said, I can't guarantee your next concussion won't be permanent. And so it was like in that moment that I had like this realization, oh shit, like I have to make a tough decision, but it was a decision that was obviously very clear what I had to do. And so even though I was still part of the team, my role changed. Yeah. So I was no longer contributing on the field. Yeah. I was on the bench. And that's a really hard transition for anybody that has had something taken away from them that they love. And my identity shifted. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I mean, I had potential contracts professionally overseas after that. So I was like, I don't know who I am anymore. Yeah. And I ended up finding this elective course in sports psychology. I didn't even know sports psychology was a thing. So I was like, meh, sounds cool. Let's take it.
Sports.
Right? Cool. That's exactly what it was. It was just the sports that got me. And I fell in love with it so much. It was as if somebody held up a mirror to me and they reflected back all these areas of the mind and our psychology that I actually had the ability to change and affect, where up until that point, I believed I was completely helpless. Like, well, this is just how I feel. Well, sucks to suck. Like, I legit just thought that's just how I am. Well, oh well. And what I realized was one of the things I did, one of the biggest things that helped me realize I actually needed this more than anybody else, was I had this habit of connecting my worth to my outcomes. So when I was the top scorer, when I was playing well, man, I was on top of the world. I was like, yeah. And then the second I wasn't playing well or had a bad game, I was worthless. And I realized that when you connect your worth to your outcomes, your worth will always be temporary. And I had this epiphany and I thought, man, who would I have been? What kind of athlete would I have been? Friend, teammate, if I would have known these things? And then I thought, how many people can I help now that I do? And so that what led me to go on and get a master's degree and start to really dive into this work. And really the reason why I love it, the reason why I feel I have a seat at the table is because I was the person that needed it the most. And there's nothing I teach my athletes or my executives or anybody that I work with that I would not do myself and that I haven't practiced myself.
Yeah. Oh man, that's so good. What a powerful story. I love that. And I knew there was some kind of story. I knew that you didn't just say like, well, I just feel like I could, have a seat at the table because
I'm just smart. That's all.
I took some good classes and I know it. But yeah, to walk through that. So you said something really interesting before we hit record. It sounded like you were kind of working through some. I'm just like, the hope today was like, okay, Lauren, give us like all the confidence that we need to overcome imposter syndrome and all of the things, because you've got it all figured out, and that's true, right?
Yeah, right. I was gonna say, yeah. Like, I was like, if you want any feedback on that, you could just ask my husband. Definitely not. And I think I have people somebody came to me the other day and they said, Lauren, mindset is everything. And I paused and I said, no, it's not. And they were like, what? I said, no, mindset is not everything. Could you imagine if I walked into a Yankee locker room and I just said, hey, all you coaches, doesn't matter. Mindset's everything. Like, I can't just have an elite mindset and then go up to the plate and expect to hit a 90-mile-an-hour fastball down the middle. Like, that's not going to happen. Mindset is not everything, but it impacts everything. And so that's the distinct difference, is that a lot of us, we have these incredible skills, that things that we do and that we know we can do very well. We have a crazy talent, but a lot of the things that hold us back aren't in our ability to do it, but in our mindset and belief that support it.
Whew, man, so good. So, as you were talking about, like, you said, like finding your worth in your outcome. I think that's like, man, a lot of us can relate. Like, as a filmmaker, having done this work for 17 years, I've gone through different phases of feeling like, once I hit that milestone, whether that was like a $5,000 job or a $10,000 job, or once we hit a 6-figure job, or once we win this award, or once we get a seat at this table, or once I get asked to speak at this event. But here I am 17 years later, and I'm just kind of like, well, like, yeah, that stuff doesn't really matter. Like, that's not the thing. Like, it's not the thing. And I think there are a lot that listen to the show that feel like, they're never going to be able to book a $10,000 job. And like, that's the thing. Or even like, we talk a lot about like building a 6-figure filmmaking business. Like, if you can do that, like that's a good start to like having a salary that you can live off of, that you can start to raise a family. But like, like there's kind of like, there's a lot more to it, but there's a struggle. I think there's a belief that people have of like, well, why would somebody pay me that? Like, that's like, to get to that spot, like that's going to be really hard and difficult. And so there's kind of like this, I feel like there's this settling where people are like, this is my clients only pay this much. They don't pay more. I've had that conversation so many with guys where they're just like, they just don't pay. Like, Ryan, you're talking about booking $10,000 jobs or $20,000. Like, I'm having a hard time for people to book $3,000 or $4,000 jobs. Like, do I need to move? And I'm like,
Absolutely not.
So speaking of that, I kind of.
Hell no. If you are somebody who's asking, do I need to move? No. The only thing that needs any sort of moving is the belief that supports what you're worth. And here's a question I was asked once. Somebody asked me, what are you exchanging for your time with your clients? And I was like, what are you talking about? Like money? Like, I give them my time and they give me money. They're like, no. Obviously you're getting paid. What are you exchanging? What do you do? What are you not doing as a result of doing this for your client? And it took me a while to really think about it in this way, but there was this distinction that changed my belief around what I was charging. And it had to do with, what am I giving up to show up and do this? I was giving up time with my family. I was giving up time with my husband. I was giving up time for myself. And now all these things I've already been doing, but I had realized that I had put a price that was out of alignment with what I believed those things were worth. And so it's interesting, because when you think about this, think about like how money gives you energy. And if somebody, let's just say your services cost $10,000, and somebody says, I want you to do it for $500. How does your energy shift if you accepted the $500?
Oh man, goes to a real bad place. Yeah.
Right? 100%. And that's not because you don't value your customer. It's not because you don't value their time or their project. It's because it's out of alignment with what you have to give up to show up and do that job. And so what I realized is that whenever I felt that way, I realized, oh, this is not worth as much as it's worth to spend time with my husband. This is not. And so the question is, what are you giving up as a result? And how does your energy impact it? Because your energy is going to tell you a lot. Money is energy. And so when I show up to a job, like I am giving you everything. Like I am 100% present. I am with you and I am here to solve and help and support in any way that I can. And I know that I can't fully do that under a certain amount. I know that. I'm aware of that. And I think what a lot of people fall into is this imposter syndrome that we did talk about before. And there's this mental model and principle in psychology called the Dunning-Kruger effect. And essentially what it means is when we're starting out and we're learning something, that we actually think we know a lot more than we do. And so our confidence is way up, right? It's kind of like when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And it's like when you first learn something, you are so confident. I remember coming right out of grad school, I'm like, I can change the world. Like, you know what I mean? And then I run into somebody and I'm like, oh, hold on. Like, and I'm like suddenly being like smacked in the face by reality. So when we first are learning a certain amount, there comes a point where our confidence goes way up and we become overconfident. And then there's this, they call it like the valley of despair. And then you go down and the more you learn, the less you know, the less you realize you know. And so then that confidence goes down. And that's where that imposter syndrome exists. And that's because you know enough to know you don't know it all. And to know that you couldn't possibly know it all. And then it comes off to this almost like spot where it's like somewhere in the middle, where you know enough to be confident in what you speak about, but you're not overly confident because you understand that you have so much more to learn. And that's the sweet spot. But a lot of us, we stop at the imposter syndrome. We stop there and we take our ultimate belief there. And that is where it becomes reflected in our prices. It becomes reflected in how we show up. And it starts to impact our actions. And we start taking counsel from our feelings versus really going in deep and going, okay, hold on, let's get to the facts of this. Let's put aside our emotions. Let's look at the facts. What do we have to do to get to that next level? And does that mean I'm going to have to say no to some clients because they can't afford me? Probably. But wouldn't you rather have 3 quality, high-paying clients that are going to pay you what you're worth so when you're excited when you show up? Or would you rather have 10 clients that are okay, average, and maybe are flaky, and you'll probably spend more time putting into them and they'll probably be more difficult to work with than the others. So it's an odd dichotomy, but oftentimes it lies in our belief systems, not as much in our ability.
I think that's brilliant. And I mean, that's how, as I'm coaching these guys and gals to overcome those hurdles, it's easy for me to say because I did overcome them. We used to charge, $300 was like the first real job that I charged. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I'm going to be rich. And then I was like, well, I wonder if I could charge 500. And then it was 1,000. But I was like, oh, I'll never be able to charge 2,000. And I was like, one day I was charging 2,000, on and on and on. So it's easy on this side for me to say like, guys, you can do this. Like you can book a $20,000 job. And people will still think like, well, okay, but I'm living in an area. I mean, I just had this call like 2 weeks ago with a student, and it was like, I think our area just it's not the same as your area. I mean, we're in like Detroit. It's not like, I mean, it's nice, but like there's definitely way nicer places. So there's still like this, like, if you take the job that you don't really want, the energy gets sucked out of you. You're going to resent the client. You're going to be annoyed at yourself. You're like you're saying no to other opportunities that might come along the way because you didn't know they were coming. But it was money. It was an opportunity. And for a lot of people, it's like, well, I would rather have that job than no job, which is kind of the space where I think a lot of people find themselves. And then it's immediate resentment. It's immediate like, oh gosh, you start having, and I know as people are listening, they're like, oh, I know, I said yes to that job. I should have said no. But it's like, again, back to that word audacity, having the audacity to say no to something when there's an opportunity, it almost feels like you might feel like you're not being a good steward. Like you have this opportunity before you, and you got to figure out how. And as a filmmaker, we're so good on our feet as producers, making magic happen when everything goes wrong. And I think that's how we take clients on, bad clients. So like, how do I help convince or teach or lead the way to like help me, help them, help us all?
Yes. Yes. Okay. So this is really great. I'm so glad we're bringing this up. So a couple things. First, when you're saying this, I've been in that position. I'm like sitting here, I'm nodding because I'm like, yeah, exactly. Like I charge a lot for my one-on-one clients, like a lot of money because I pour so much time and energy into them. And I do it in a way where I know I'm going to show up and give you my 100% every single time. If I did anything less than that, it would be a disservice to my client and just a disservice to me. And I'm just not going to do that. And so I want everybody to think about this. When you say yes to something, what are you saying no to? Number one, for me, when I say yes to a client, I'm saying no to my family. I'm saying no to these things that bring me joy. I'm saying no, and I have a list of what that is. So I'm very clear. When I say yes, I'm saying no to these things. When you say no, what are you saying yes to? Are you saying yes to what you believe you're worth? Are you saying yes to quality? That I'm going to produce quality and I'm not going to do it at that price because quality matters to me. I'm saying yes to my ideal client because even though like, man, you've got all this is a really important piece to it and you don't fit into my ideal client. So first, those are the two questions. What are you saying no to as a result of saying yes? And what are you saying yes to as a result of saying no? Number one. Number two, story time. So I was working with the Yankees and I was at one of our affiliates and I'm sitting in the dugout and I'm chatting it up with this player and I'm asking him questions and he's giving me like one-word answers. And I'm like, oh God, like, I got feel. I can tell he wants nothing to do with me. So usually what that tells me is that I haven't developed a good enough relationship. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to spend more time trying to get to know him, so that I can build a relationship, so that I can be a useful tool for him in case he ever needs it. Well, it's like no matter what I did, like he wanted nothing to do with me. And now I'm very aware that I am not for everyone.
Good.
And that's totally okay. So I don't need everybody to like love me and whatnot. But I had very different interactions before. So then I got to thinking, shoot, I hope I didn't say anything to like offend him and I'm just completely unaware of it. So one day I head to the cages early before game and he's in there by himself warming up. And I'm like, oh God, he is like literally like for real. Now I actually have to talk to this woman. So I asked him, I said, hey, can I ask you a question? He's like, sure, what you got? I said, have I said anything to offend you that I'm just not aware of? I said, the last couple of times I've tried to have a conversation with you, you've been very short. And don't get me wrong, I'm not forcing you to try and talk to me, but I just want to make sure that there's not something I missed. And he stops and he goes, oh, no, that's not it. And I said, can you elaborate? He's like, yeah, I'm not good at speaking. And I was like, what? Like you've been speaking just fine. Like, what do you mean? He's like, I don't think I'm very good at speaking. And therefore I like avoid it at all costs, especially with authority. And so we decided to speak later because he had a game to play and focus on. So we met like the next day. And I asked him, I said, when did you start believing this? Yeah. Like, who told you this? I was like, and I want you to really think back. Think back to like your childhood. I was like, when did you start believing this? I was like, think about when was the first time you heard it? And he paused and he thought about it. And he goes, I know. And I was like, what you got? He said, first time I heard this was in elementary school. He said, I really struggled with stuttering when I would be asked to read out loud. And I remember just hearing from both my teachers and the students that like, I'm not good at speaking. And so really quick, I want you to think about this like formula. Our identity equals our belief plus actions. His belief was, I'm not good at speaking. And so every time he acted in support of that belief and he shrunk in the background and he responded with very short words or trying to avoid conversation, he supported this belief that I'm not very good at speaking. And that became his identity. I am not good at speaking. And so I asked him, I said, who's telling you that now? And he goes, I am.
Whoa.
And I said, so let's rework this formula. Let's rework this formula. And I said, let's put your belief equals your identity plus action. So I said, let's decide who the hell you want to be. Because clearly you just said, I don't want to be this person. Who the hell do you want to be? He said, I want to be the person that can raise my hand in a group meeting. I want to be the person that can go up to my manager and ask him, what can I do better? What can I do different? I don't want to be afraid to have conversations anymore. I said, great. What actions do you have to do to support it? And so we came up with a plan. Obviously, he needed to step outside of his comfort zone. He needed to have conversations with people. One of the things that we did, and nobody knew this, it was like our little secret. Every time I'd come into that affiliate, I would do a presentation. And I would tell him ahead of time, I'd call him ahead of time and tell him the question I was going to ask. And we would prepare his answer. So then, come presentation day, I ask the question, whose hand goes up first? His. He's ready to go. And then after a while, I no longer had to prepare him because his belief took over. He decided who he wanted to be. He acted in support of it. And that reinforced this new belief that I am good at speaking, that I can do this. And so the point of all of this, and whoever's listening, is I want you to ask yourself and answer these two questions. Number one, who do I want to become? If you are not where you are right now, who the hell do you have to become to be it, to get there? Is it somebody that doesn't take less than $10,000? Is it, what is it? What are those things that you need to become to get you to the next level? And then the hardest question, what actions do you need to do to support it? Because as you support this new identity with action, your belief will start to follow. And that's how we develop these new identities. This is how we develop these new belief systems. And that is how you add a zero to your freaking income. And so just a really quick takeaway for how you do that, because the most powerful belief you will carry is your own belief about you.
Oh man, that's really good. That was really good. Oh, this podcast is a treasure. Oh, it's so good. When you said,
Appreciate you.
when you're saying yes to something, think about what you're saying no to. I've done that exercise, and that's an exercise I take people through. But when you brought up when you say no, think about what you're saying yes to. I haven't done that part, and like my mind just started reeling. I'm like, that's like immediately I was like, when you say no to, somebody who doesn't value your creativity or just, want to pay you what you're worth, what you're saying yes to is like, well, I mean, of the many things that you're saying yes to, but where my mind went immediately was all the energy, all of the opposite energy of like being drained and being resentful and being angry and annoyed and like just not showing up as your best self when you're going to do this project. What you're saying yes to is like the tons of opportunities, the tons of businesses and people that will hire you and that will value you. And you're saying yes to like, okay, like, well, maybe I need to do something different in my marketing or where I'm showing up and how I'm showing up so that the right client does come this way versus, just always feeling like, well, this is just the spot that I'm just kind of always in here. And, but I love thinking about like what you're saying yes to is like, you've got an opportunity in front of you to do something versus like just settling and reacting and responding. And we all want to hide behind our work or behind our websites and hope that that's the thing that sells what we do. But when we're frustrated with the type of clients that we're getting or the type of work or the small budgets, you can't just sit back and like wait and hope that it's going to work out. Right. It's that whole identity shift. I think that's so good.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, of course. And I think that there's a really good mental model you can use. And when you said, I didn't think of it the opposite way, we call that the power of inverted thinking. And so whatever people say, like, how do I get better? Another question I ask is, how do you get worse? And you can always use the power of inverted thinking to really see the full picture. You know, what did I do well? What didn't I do well? And you can start really looking at that. What did I learn? What did I fail to learn, or what did I miss? And when we start doing that, it really opens up a really objective view of the answers that we're looking for, or potential opportunities for solutions within it. Because sometimes we can reflect and we can, only look at one-sided. Like, I get it. I need to look at this in this way. No, look at it both ways, because you'd be surprised, because sometimes, like you said, oh, I didn't think of it the other way. And when we do, sometimes it just gives us a bigger picture.
A practice
of what
that
we're
we
looking
do
at.
at work is after production, we talk with the production team. We're like, all right, hey, what went well today? And it's like, oh man, we did this. Okay. And what didn't go well? And it's like, oh yeah, okay. And it's great because like if we just ask,
what can we do better next time?
It's like what we do at the dinner table with our kids. Hey, what was your high today? It's this. What was your low? It's like, oh yeah, well, this happened. Cool. And then that gives us an opportunity to be able to speak life, to speak truth, to just encourage whatever that thing is. But you're right. Like obviously you get a completely different answer, but the way that some of us think, whether it's glass half full or glass half empty, whatever, like if that's how you approach all the situations, like as soon as you inverse it, it's like, oh wow, there's all these other things that I wasn't even thinking about. So good.
Yeah. Well, and this is the thing about like a lot of like mindset stuff that's out there I can't stand, because it's like a personal struggle I have. Is we always have to be positive. Oh, we always just have to find the good. No, that's BS. That's not real life. That's not reality. And so I don't like ignoring the struggle. I don't like ignoring those things. Really, what I think mental toughness and mental performance really comes down to is accepting your reality and choosing your response. And so when you can evaluate your reality in a way that is like, this is real, and you're willing to look at it, now you have the power to choose what the hell you're going to do about it. But if we avoid it, if we pretend it doesn't exist, if we just are like, meh, like we're just going to talk about the good things, we're missing the whole point. Because mental performance, it's easy to be mentally tough when everything's going well. It's how you can perform and how you can maintain your performance when things aren't going well. Now, that's the true measure of your ability to remain mentally
so
tough
funny.
in
I
those situations.
love that you have a sports background. You probably know this by my looks. I played high school football. Actually, everybody listening to the show, they're like, huh? I was actually pretty good. But my football coach, he would talk about intestinal fortitude. So when you talk about like mental toughness, I hear Coach Raleigh in the back, and he's like, mental toughness, intestinal fortitude, like the things. Like, I'm like, oh, I resonate with that. So good.
I love it.
I watched one of the videos that you have on your Instagram. You talked about your presence mattering, and I watched that and I'm like, oh man, in this community of filmmakers, I am so about community. I'm so about community over competition. It's like I started this business that essentially it's like I'm giving the tools, the techniques, the ways that the things that we do as a video production business. Here's what's worked for us. Here's what has it. Like here's the blueprint, how Ryan built his business, the things he's done well, the things that he hasn't. So a competitor of mine might be like, what the heck? Like, we're going to get all the secrets. We're going to do the things, and this is going to be great. So that's not like, what I'm teaching here is like, it's fine to like be friends, like, build friends it's like collaborators versus competition. But I think that there's still this like, well, there's already a video company down the street or around the block that does brand stories, or that their motion design stuff is so good, or their color grading is like out of this world. Like I'm not even going to touch it. I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to try. I remember when I wanted to start like coaching other videographers back in like 2010, my friend Matt Davis, who actually helped me start this business, he started doing it on his own. And he launched, and I got this email. I was like, hey, Matt Davis, the video business coach, or whatever it's called. And as soon as I got that email, I just like shrunk. I just was like depressed. I'm like, oh no, he beat me to it. Like now I can't do it, because I'd be competing against my friend, or like, now he's got the market. I'm out. And I didn't touch it, talk about it, think like I wished that I had done it for years. And then in 2015, 5 years later, we have this conversation, and we're both like, he's like, you want to do this with it? I'm like, wait, are you serious? Like, yeah, I would love to do it. Let's do it together. So talk about that a little bit. I would love to hear your perspective.
Well, actually, our mutual friend, Mike Kim, is who said this to our group actually this past week or two in Denver. And a bunch of us speakers he invited to speak at the event. And he told us a story, and somebody had told him that your presence matters to people. You showing up matters. And it was this incredible reminder. And again, like you said, I've been in that position too, where, oh man, somebody started this. Oh, I can't do that. Or, oh, well, it's too saturated, whatever that is. And the truth is, no one can do what you do like you do it.
So good.
Your voice is special. Your perspective is special. And the examples I gave in that video is like, could you imagine if Kim Kardashian was like, oh, can't start Skims because Spanx already exists? Like, could you imagine if Kate Hudson was like, oh man, Lululemon's already a thing, can't do Fabletics? Or if like Daniel Ek and Michael Lawrence had decided, or I'm sorry, I think I may have got his name wrong. Either way, the founders of Spotify, if they were like, oh man, well, Pandora is already dominating the market. Like, can you imagine if those brands and people just decided, like if Rihanna was like, oh, I can't start Fenty Beauty because MAC is already a thing. Like could you imagine what our world would look like if everybody just said, you know what, I'm out because there's somebody else already doing it.
Yeah.
There's enough success for everybody. And your presence matters. Like, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what your background. It doesn't matter what you're passionate about. You add value. And the act of you showing up matters. And so if your mind's playing tricks on you and telling you that you don't matter for whatever reason, like, I hope right now is a reminder that your voice is unique. Your perspective is valuable. And
That's
your
so
presence
good. I think a place where we also get hung up, all of us, is like, well, maybe I do want to start a music streaming business, but I look and it's like, okay, it's saturated. There's like these huge, in the world of production, it's like, well, I mean, there are companies out there that are doing unbelievable. Like, how dare I think that I could step into this? When you have a desire, for the listeners of the show, like they were like, well, I want to start a video. Like, I want to get into this because I love it. But then you start looking at the competition and like who's down the street and the work. And it's like, man, there's some really incredible stuff out there. I think there's part of us that thinks that success is like building it like they did. Like, so for the Spotify guys to look in, well, there's iTunes, there's Pandora. It's like, man, like that's just like, even if they had this strong desire, and they probably had this cool mission statement of like, we want to bring music to the world to, help everybody feel better or something, like, I'm pretty sure that's it. If that, like, whatever your why is,
that
like,
makes sense.
Whatever the soul behind everything that you're doing, like, that's the part that matters. And how it looks when it rolls out, I think we have this feeling of like, well, I need to be successful, and that's what success looks like. And that's where I think we make a big mistake, because by us not showing up, by us not, bringing our presence and allowing people to experience the passion that we have for this thing, then we're really doing a disservice.
Yeah. And I heard somebody say this once, and it stuck with me. It was, don't compare your day 1 to someone
So
else's
good.
day 500. And
Yeah.
I would have this talk with new draft picks at the Yankees all the time. Like, you're going to look up at our major league level and you're going to go, wow, I have so far to go. But how do you develop the mastery of 1,000 reps? You have to start with your first. And it's easy to look at somebody and go, oh my gosh, well, look what they're at. But you didn't see everything before. You didn't know that Derek Jeter cried every single day for the first month of being drafted, to his parents begging to go home.
Yeah.
Like, you don't see those things behind the scenes. You don't see how often players would come into my office and talk about quitting because they just don't. Man, I got sent down. I just don't think I can make it. And guess who's pitching and opening for certain teams this year? Those same people. And so the fact is that you can't.
Right. Yeah. It's good.
You can't have success without struggle. You can't grow and be comfortable at the same time. And that one of the biggest insights to success is not whether or not you have the ability, but whether or not you're willing to stick with it longer than anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Like, something people underestimate is how hard it's going to be. The other thing is how much time it's going to take to get there. Most people give up way before the flower begins to bloom. And so sometimes it's, number one, you need to understand, why the hell do you want it? Like, what is it that you really want and why? Because, and the reason why people say this all the time, like, what is your why? What is the reason? It's because the part of our brain that is in charge of decision making, it is not like the A plus B part of our brain. Okay. That's like the outer ring, of our brain. But if you really go deep into the emotional centers of our brain, that is the part that is responsible for decision making. And so when you speak to your why, when you speak to the reason that is greater than you, that only you know what it is, that is you communicating directly with your decision-making center. And I'll give you an example of this. My parents got divorced when I was 10. And my mom could not come to any of my soccer games all through high school and club because my mom was working overtime on the weekends to pay for it. I didn't fully understand it at the time. Actually, it wasn't even until probably mid-high school that I really understood why she couldn't come. And when I learned that, I was like, I want to get a soccer scholarship because I want my mom to be able to come to every game. And so let me tell you, when you're exhausted, it's even making me tear up right now, which shows you like, this is like so real for me, right? And that's the point. Nobody knows what this is but you. It was so important for me so that my mom could see me and my mom could be there and experience this thing that I love so much. Yeah. That was my why to getting a college scholarship. So when I needed to stay late and do a double day on my own, it was nothing. You know why? Because I remembered why I was doing it. I'm doing this because I want my mom to be able to come to my games. I don't want her to have to work the weekends to be able to pay for it. I want to pay for this myself. And so it was nothing when I was like wondering if I should get out of bed to go do this. It was nothing when I was asking people to stay late and help me with my touches and to get my shots on goal. It was nothing to do those little extra things because the thing that I wanted was so much bigger than me and it drove me to do it. And the other thing to know is that it can change. It can adapt. It can, like, my why is no longer that. I no longer play soccer, especially at that level. And my mom has no issues, like, with that stuff. Our lives have changed drastically. So my why has adjusted and evolved as well. And so sometimes I feel people believe that it needs to be this huge, grandiose thing. It doesn't. It just has to matter to you. And it has to move you in a way that's emotional. Because your emotional centers, just like when you don't feel like getting out of bed, if your why is not bigger than those emotional feelings you feel in those small moments, you will never overcome those temporary feelings of comfort.
Okay, man, jeez. It's like, no, it's like all sorts of
Do you
nuggets.
feel like I just
and
punched you in the
like,
face?
so good. Man, yeah, this is really powerful. It's really good. You do good work, Lauren. Really good. How can people
you.
follow along? What do you got? How can they get more from you? Because you got a lot to offer.
Well, thank you. That means a lot coming from you. So probably the best way to get in touch with me, I'm on most social media channels. But because short story, my maiden name is Abarca, a very unique last name. And then I got married
2,
and
3,
Lauren
something like that.
Johnson. Turns out there's several of us in this world. So, right, just a couple. So if you want to get in touch with me, the best way is to go to my website, which is laurenjohnsonandco.com, and that's ANDCO.com. And that's where you can find all my social media handles. You can sign up for a newsletter. You can check out information about my events. And what I would love to offer your listeners is I actually also have a free resource that is 57 powerful mental performance questions. These are questions I use with my own clients, with my CEOs, with my professional athletes that really help them get clear on what it is, what actions do I need to take next? What are those blind spots that I have that I need to work on? And so there's these incredible questions that I use that I will definitely send you the link for so that you can post in the show notes so that you can download that free
Thank
resource.
you for sharing
It's
that.
amazing.
That's really
that
good.
You guys can get the benefit of that.
Similar to like affirmations, or just like more like really just digging in and pulling other stuff out.
Yes, digging in, pulling other stuff out, and they're categorized. So it's not just like a bunch of random questions. They're very calculated in terms of if you want to find your blind spot, if you want to evaluate yourself post game, whether it's an actual game or if it's just a performance or it's after production. And so they're all categorized into all these categories that will really help you reflect and improve your performance, because you can't change anything you're not aware of. And so what these do is these really bring
I love that.
to the forefront
I think
the awareness
through, like,
of what needs changing and how we go about
even the
doing
way
that.
that we measure like our goals at work. Each week we meet and we talk about we call our quarterly goals are rocks, and the question is like, are you on track or are you off track with your rocks? And it's not like, well, like I'm feeling pretty good about it, which early on that was kind of like, yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about it. It's like, well, no, like what's the measurable here? And so then we had to figure out like, oh, okay, like it's not just like, do you feel good or not good?
Right.
So it sounds like, these questions that you present do that. It's like you kind of forcing yourself to say like, well, okay, what does that actually mean though? Like we had a good production. Like, what does that mean? Is that good for you or good for the client? Did you, was there anything, asking the opposite of that, was there anything that we missed or we forgot, or was there anything confused, and why? Like, why were that? I love that. That sounds like a good tool. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, if you want better answers, you got to ask better questions. So this is a good place to start.
I love that. Lauren, this was really, seriously, so good. Thank you for all of the knowledge bombs. Really, really powerful. How do you want to leave us today?
I think if I leave you guys with anything today, one of the most powerful quotes, and it's always stuck with me, especially with like an entrepreneur, Stuart, and just knowing I was meant for more. Somebody told me this and it stuck with me. It said, learn from everyone, but follow no one. And it's just this little bit of encouragement that I have something to learn with every single person I come in contact with, but don't be afraid to go out there and take risks on your own, because sometimes there's the best learning experience.
That's so good. Love that. Lauren, seriously, thank you so much. This is really a treasure for me, and I know this is going to be a great episode for so many. So thanks a ton.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, my friend, if you want access to any of the links or the things that Lauren and I talked about on this episode, you can get them in the show notes. If you're not sure where the show notes can be found, just go to studiosherpas.com/279. If you're watching this video on YouTube or on Facebook, leave a comment. You can leave a review on Apple Podcasts, but let me know what is your big takeaway from this episode. Do you believe that mindset is one of those things that is stopping you from your business growing or you being able to scale your business? Or is that something that you haven't really struggled with? I would love to know. And what are some tactics or some techniques that you've applied to help you overcome some of the things that some of the soundtracks that you might have in your life that are telling you stuff that's not true and stuff that might be holding you back? Would love to hear from you, so please feel free to comment, and I would love to hear from you. Again, please know I'm so thankful that we get to hang out like this. It is a joy for me to create this kind of content. Join the Facebook group if you're not a part of that, studiosherpas.com/community. You can get access there. We're having our in-person event called the Onward Summit. Tickets are for sale right now, so you can grab your ticket. You can come hang out with a bunch of commercial filmmakers here in the Detroit area. People are going to be coming from all over the United States. It's June 5th through the 8th, and you can find out more about that event if you go to studiosherpas.com/onward. That's all I have for today. I will see you guys on next week's episode. And until then, do great stuff. Believe that you can do it. I'm here rooting you on, supporting you, wanting the best for you. And I don't want you to do it alone. So come to our event, join us online, and meet some other people. And it'll be great. I promise. Okay? All right. Talk to you real soon. See you. Bye.